The wind roared outside Red Rock Diner, swirling red dust across the lot. Inside, the air hummed with the scent of burgers and fried cornbread, a smell that stuck with you. Jenna Harper wiped sweat off her brow, her apron stained with grease. It was a scorching afternoon in Sedona, Arizona, and the diner buzzed with chaos, tourists and locals alike. Jenna's ponytail swung as she rushed between tables, sneakers squeaking on the wood floor. At 25, her eyes were tired, her temper hot, and today she was on edge. "Jenna, table 6 needs water." Tommy Grayson yelled from the kitchen, his sweaty face peeking out. He grinned. "Maybe smile a bit, huh? Don't scare him." She glared back. "You want to refill it, Tommy? I'm as close to dumping this pitcher on someone." She grabbed it, fingers tight. Tommy laughed, but she wasn't joking. Her phone buzzed. Another text from Nate, her boyfriend, fuming about their latest fight. She ignored it, shoving it deeper into her pocket. Work was bad enough. She stormed to table 6, slamming the pitcher down. "Here's your water," she snapped at the couple. "Anything else?" The woman flinched. The man muttered, "No, thanks," annoyed. Jenna didn't care. They'd tip her $1 anyway. She turned, nearly hitting a tray, and cursed softly. This shift was endless. Then the door creaked open, hot air rushing in. An old man stepped inside, 80, maybe, wearing a faded flannel and jeans, a Stetson tilted on his head. His dusty boots thudded as he took a corner booth. Jenna smirked. "Great," she muttered, scribbling an order. "Another guy who'll sip coffee and leave me pennies." "Jenna," Tommy called. "You got table 9, or should I get Lydia?" He grinned, teasing, but his eyes flicked to the man. "I've got it," she barked, forcing a smile as she approached. The man looked up, his sharp eyes catching hers. Something about him felt off. "What'll it be?" she asked, voice curt, pen tapping. The chatter faded behind her. He tipped his hat, voice low, gravelly. "Just a burger, darling." Jenna raised an eyebrow, jotting it down. "Burger. Anything else?" Her tone was sharp. She was too frayed for niceties. "Nope. Thank you," he said, calm, steady. It threw her off. Why was he so composed? She turned, rolling her eyes. "Darling, what is this, a Western?" she mumbled. Tommy caught her eye. "He looks like a movie cowboy, but he's got stories." "I don't care if he's John Wayne," she shot back, sliding the order through. But she glanced back. He sat there, hat off, gazing at the dust outside, calm amid the storm. Something shifted in the air, heavy, tense. She didn't know it yet, but this moment would change everything. And the calm in his eyes was about to unravel her world. Jenna Harper shoved the order slip through the kitchen window, her hands shaky from heat and frustration. The Red Rock Diner buzzed around her, plates clashing, voices rising over the grill sizzle, wind howling outside with swirls of red dust. She leaned on the counter, breathless, her mind a tangle. Nate's text burned in her head. "You're always too busy." She gritted her teeth. Too busy? She was drowning, and he didn't care. Her gaze flicked to the old man in the corner booth, his calm mocking her storm. "Tommy," she snapped. "How long on that burger for table 9? I'm not waiting all day." Tommy Grayson peeked out, wiping his hands, grinning wide. "Chill, Jenna. 5 minutes. Guy's cool, but he's not rushing you." He nodded at the man. "Seriously, doesn't he look like a cowboy star?" Jenna rolled her eyes hard. "Sure, Tommy. He's here to shoot a Western. Just finish it." She grabbed a tray, her move sharp, and checked another table. But passing his booth, she slowed. He watched her quiet, intense. It prickled her skin. She shook it off. Soon, the burger was ready, juicy, steaming. Jenna snatched it, stomping back to table 9. She dropped it with a thud. "Here you go," she said, voice curt. "Enjoy." She turned, but his gravelly tone stopped her. "Looks good. Thanks, darling." She spun around, hands on hips. "Darling? Really?" Her sarcasm rang out. "What's next, little lady with a hat tip?" She smirked, waiting for a flinch. But he just met her eyes, steady, a slight smile forming. "Could be," he said, cutting the burger slow and sure. "Depends on the meal." Jenna blinked, off balance. Before she could snap back, a voice cut in. "I know him. Ruth Coleman, the 60-year-old regular, lowered her coffee, peering over her glasses. Hollywood, 70s, those eyes, that jaw, it's familiar. Jenna snorted, arms crossed. Oh, come on, Ruth. What? Someone's been slumming it here. She faced him, smirking. No offense, cowboy, but if you're famous, I'm the queen of this joint. She laughed, short, sharp, and strutted off, feeling victorious. But his gaze stuck to her heavy. Hey, Jenna, Tommy called, quieter now. Ruth might be right. Guy's got a vibe, you know. Shut it, Tommy, she hissed, slamming napkins down. He's just an old dude with a hat. But doubt crept in. She glanced back, his hands steady, posture calm. It bugged her. Everyone else was loud, rude. Not him. Why? She wiped the counter, pushing it away. Then Ruth spoke again, louder. I worked with big shots, Jenna. He's somebody, I'd bet on it. Heads turned. Jenna spun, patience gone. Ruth, if he's somebody, I'll eat that hat. She pointed at the Stetson, voice sharp. He's just a desert drifter, okay? Drop it. She stormed off to refill coffee, hands trembling now, from anger, maybe more. Pouring, she caught his reflection in the pot. He watched her, that smile lingering, like he knew something. Her stomach twisted. She'd sassed him, sure she'd won. But what if Ruth was right? The thought hit hard, sudden, and she nearly dropped the pot. No way. She shoved it down, turning back to work. But the air thickened, electric like a storm brewed, and she didn't see the storm about to break, and it was closer than she thought. The lunch rush at Red Rock Diner finally slowed, the clatter of plates fading into a low hum as the last of the sunburned tourists trickled out into the Sedona heat. Jenna Harper stood behind the counter, her apron crumpled, her hands gripping a rag as she scrubbed at a stubborn ketchup stain. Her chest heaved with every breath. She was still rattled, still replaying her jab at the old man in the corner booth. If you're famous, I'm the queen of this joint, she'd said, laughing it off. Now, the words felt like gravel in her throat. She glanced at him, table 9, finishing his burger, sipping water slow and steady like time didn't matter. It bugged her more than she'd admit. Hey, Jenna. Tommy Grayson's voice broke her trance, his head popping out from the kitchen. You okay? You look like you just saw a ghost, or maybe a movie star. He chuckled, wiping sweat from his brow, but his eyes darted to the old man with a knowing glint. Shut up, Tommy, she muttered, tossing the rag down. He's nobody. Ruth's just stirring crap up. She shot a look at Ruth Coleman, perched at her usual spot, sipping coffee and watching the man like a hawk. Jenna's stomach twisted. What, they were right? No. She shook her head hard. No way some Hollywood relic was eating burgers in her diner. But then the air shifted. The back office door swung open, and Lydia Martinez burst out, her dark hair pulled tight in a bun, her face lit up with a rare smile. Mr. Eastwood, she called, her voice warm, cutting through the diner's hum. Didn't know you were dropping by today. She hurried toward the corner booth, her steps quick, her hands smoothing her apron like she was meeting royalty. Jenna froze. The rag slipped from her fingers, hitting the counter with a soft thud. Eastwood, she whispered, her voice barely a breath. Her eyes locked on the old man as he stood, slow and deliberate, tipping his Stetson slightly before shaking Lydia's hand. Those sharp blue eyes flicked to Jenna for a split second, a look that pierced right through her, and her heart slammed against her ribs. Clint Eastwood. The Clint Eastwood. Here, in her diner. Holy shit, Tommy hissed, leaning out further, his spatula dangling in his hand. I told you, Jenna. That's him. That's the guy from those old westerns. His voice rose, drawing stares from the few customers left. Ruth slapped her table, triumphant. Told ya. Worked with him once, back in '76, on set. Those eyes don't lie. She grinned, pointing at him like she'd just cracked a case. Clint freaking Eastwood, right here in Sedona. Jenna's legs felt like jelly. She gripped the counter, her mind racing, replaying every word she'd flung at him. No offense, cowboy, I'll eat that damn hat. Her cheeks burned, hot and prickly, as humiliation crashed over her like a wave. He wasn't just some drifter. He was the owner, the damn owner of Red Rock Diner. She'd heard the stories. Some big shot owned the place, kept it low-key. but she'd never cared enough to ask. Until now. Lydia laughed, oblivious to Jenna's meltdown. Mr. Eastwood, you've been gone too long. How's everything? The grill's still kicking thanks to your last fix. She gestured around, proud, like she was showing off a treasure. Clint nodded, his voice low, steady. Looks like you're holding it down, Lydia. Good to see. He glanced at Jenna again, brief, but enough to make her want to sink through the floor. Then he reached into his pocket, pulled out a $50 bill, and laid it on the table. Not a tip, a statement. He grabbed his hat and headed for the door, boots thudding soft against the wood. Jenna's breath caught. Wait, she started, but the word died in her throat. He paused at the exit, turning just enough to meet her eyes one last time. That faint smile lingered, knowing, like he'd seen right through her sass and straight to her soul. Then he was gone, the door swinging shut behind him, leaving a silence that roared in her ears. Jenna, Tommy whisper shouted, rushing to her side. You okay? You just sassed Clint Eastwood. The Clint Eastwood. And he owns this place. He shook his head, half laughing, half awed. You're screwed. Shut up, Tommy, she snapped, but her voice cracked weak. She stared at the 50 on the table, her hands trembling. Ruth cackled, sipping her coffee. Told you, girl. Should have listened to me. Lydia turned, finally noticing Jenna's pale face. What's wrong with you? She asked, frowning. You look sick. You know who that was, right? Mr. Eastwood. He's the heart of this diner. Keeps it real, keeps us going. Jenna swallowed hard, her throat dry as the desert outside. Yeah, she croaked. I know now. She stumbled to the back, shoving through the kitchen door, her mind a blur. She'd insulted him, mocked him, and he just sat there, calm as ever, letting her dig her own grave. The weight of it hit her, sharp, heavy, like a punch to the gut. She sank against the wall, breathing fast. What had she done? And what the hell was he going to do about it? She didn't know. But one thing was clear. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Jenna Harper tossed all night, Clint Eastwood's piercing gaze haunting her dreams. She stumbled into Red Rock Diner the next morning, her stomach a knot of dread, her apron feeling like lead. The Sedona sun blazed outside, casting long shadows through the windows, but inside, she felt cold. What if he'd told Lydia what she was done here? Rent was due, and Nate's texts about money buzzed in her pocket like angry wasps. She tied her apron, hands trembling, the smell of frying cornbread sharp in the air. It didn't soothe her today, it stung. Morning, Jenna. Tommy Grayson shouted from the kitchen, flipping pancakes with that dumb grin. Still alive after sassing the legend? Were you hiding from him? His laugh bounced off the walls, grating her raw nerves. Shut up, Tommy, she snapped, tugging the apron strings tight. I don't need your crap now. She glanced at the corner booth, empty, and her chest squeezed. She'd been a loudmouth fool, and he'd just sat there, cool as the desert night. She grabbed a coffee pot, forcing herself to move, to breathe. The lunch rush hit hard, voices clashing with the grill's sizzle. Jenna darted between tables, forcing stiff smiles, refilling water fast, even muttering sorry when she splashed a drink. It wasn't her. Too nice, too quiet, and Tommy clocked it. Whoa, he called, leaning out. You're acting human. Did Eastwood spook you that bad? Leave it, Tommy, she hissed, her voice cracking. She wiped the table, hands shaky when the door swung open. That slow thud of boots echoed. Her heart stopped cold. She turned, slow, dread rising like bile. And there he was, Clint Eastwood, back in that booth, flannel shirt creased, Stetson on the table. Jesus, she whispered, the pot slipping in her grip. He sat, calm, like nothing had happened. Was he here to fire her? She edged over, legs jelly, voice faint. Mr. Eastwood, I didn't think you'd be back so soon. He looked up, eyes sharp, steady. I drop in, he said, gravelly and low. Keeps things real. He leaned back, hands resting easy, and she felt pinned. She swallowed, words spilling out. Yesterday, I didn't know it was you. I'm so sorry, I was way out of line. Her cheeks burned, fingers twisting her apron. She braced for a blow, anything. He raised a hand, firm, calm. No need, he said. I'm not here to bust you. He paused, gaze softening. But hear this, darling. You don't know who's in front of you. or what they faced. A lesson, she croaked, stunned. He wasn't mad. He nodded. I've had bad days. Got mocked when I started. Nobody gave me a shot. His voice grew hard, raw. How you treat folks, even when you're low. That's your mirror. Shows who you are. He tapped the table. Think about it. Her throat closed up, his words hitting deep. He wasn't yelling. He was helping. I get it, she whispered, shaky. Thank you. He gave a small nod, a faint smile there. Good. He stood, tipped his hat, and walked out, boots fading slow. Jenna. Tommy rushed over, eyes wide. What did he say? You still got a job? Yeah, she mumbled, dazed, grabbing the pot again. Her hand shook, but something lifted, light, strange. Clint's voice stuck. That's your mirror. She didn't know what to do yet, but it burned inside her. This wasn't just about yesterday. It was about every step from here on out. Jenna Harper barely slept, her mind a storm of regret as Clint Eastwood's calm stare haunted her. She trudged into Red Rock Diner the next morning, her stomach twisted tight, apron heavy with dread. The Sedona sun blazed outside, casting harsh light through the dusty windows, but inside, she felt chilled. What if he'd told Lydia? What if she was out of job? Rent loomed, and Nate's whining texts about money buzzed in her pocket. The smell of frying cornbread hit her, sharp and familiar, but didn't ease the panic clawing at her chest. Morning, Jenna. Tommy Grayson called from the kitchen, flipping pancakes with a grin. Still alive after sassing the big man? Were you scared he's coming for you? His laugh rang out loud and grating. Shut up, Tommy, she snapped, tying her apron with shaky hands. I don't need your shit today. She glanced at the corner booth, empty now, and her heart sank. She'd been a loudmouth idiot, and he just sat there, cool as ever. She grabbed a tray, forcing herself to move, to breathe through the fear. The lunch rush slammed in, a chaos of voices and clinking plates. Jenna darted between tables, pasting on stiff smiles, refilling drinks fast, even muttering sorry when she splashed water. It wasn't her usual fire, too quiet, too careful, and Tommy clocked it. Whoa, he shouted, leaning out. You're acting nice. Did Eastwood rattle you that bad? Leave it, Tommy, she hissed, her voice cracking. She wiped the table, hands trembling, when the door creaked open. That slow thud of boots hit the floor. Her breath caught, sharp and sudden. She turned, dread flooding her, and there he was, Clint Eastwood, back in that damn booth, flannel shirt creased, Stetson resting beside him. Jesus, she whispered, the tray slipping in her grip. He sat, calm as stone, like yesterday never happened. Was he here to fire her? To call her out? She forced her legs forward, voice faint. Mr. Eastwood, I didn't think you'd be back so soon. He looked up, those sharp eyes locking hers, steady and deep. I dropped by, he said low and gravelly. Keeps things real. He leaned back, hands easy on the table, and she felt pinned, exposed. She swallowed hard, words tumbling out. Yesterday, I didn't know it was you. I'm so sorry. I was a jerk. Her cheeks burned, fingers twisting her apron tight. She braced for it, a firing, a scolding, something cold and final. He raised a hand, stopping her flat. No need, he said, firm but even. I'm not here to bust you. He paused, his gaze softening just a touch. But hear this, darling. You don't know who's across from you, or what they've been through. A lesson, she croaked, stunned. He wasn't mad. He nodded slow. I've had rough days. Got laughed at plenty when I started. Nobody thought I'd make it. His voice turned hard, raw with memory. How you treat folks, even when you're down. That's your mirror. Shows who you are. He tapped the table, firm. Think on it. Her throat tightened, his words sinking deep, heavy. He wasn't yelling. He was guiding her. I get it, she whispered, voice shaky. Thank you. He gave a small nod, that faint smile creeping in. Good. He stood, tipped his hat, and headed out, boots echoing slow. Jenna. Tommy rushed over, eyes wide. What did he say? You still got a job? His grin flickered, half teasing, half worried. Yeah, she mumbled, dazed, grabbing the tray again. Her hand shook, but something shifted. Lighter now, strange. Clint's voice lingered. That's your mirror. It burned in her chest, sharp and real. She didn't know what to do with it yet. but it stuck. This wasn't just about yesterday. It was about every day after, and she felt it deep like a spark catching fire. Weeks passed, but Clint Eastwood's words stuck to Jenna Harper like desert dust. That's your mirror. They rang in her head every shift at Red Rock Diner, every forced smile. The place buzzed, plates clinking, grill hissing, but she felt different, quieter, like something was shifting inside. Jenna, Tommy Grayson called one night, tossing a towel over his shoulder. You're calm lately. Clint spooky good. He grinned, teasing. She smirked, wiping the counter. Maybe, Tommy, or I'm just over your noise. Her tone was softer, and he laughed. The corner booth sat empty, but Clint's lesson lingered. She tried small changes. When a kid spilled soda, she didn't snap. No sweat, she said, grabbing a rag. The mom tipped her extra. It felt good. Strange, but good. One evening, Lydia Martinez stepped out, arms crossed. Jenna, she barked. Come here. Jenna's stomach dropped. Yeah, she asked, hands shaky. Was this it? Lydia's face softened. You're different lately. Nicer. Customers notice. She held up a note. Someone called you sunshine in the desert. Me? Jenna whispered, stunned. Yeah, you. Lydia laughed. Keep it up. She walked off, leaving Jenna dazed. Sunshine. Tommy smirked. Guess Clint fixed you. Shut up, Tommy, she shot back, grinning. She turned to the window, red rocks fading under dusk. Clint's voice hit her. How you treat folks, she saw it now in herself. She wasn't perfect, but she was better. Locking up, she glanced at the neon sign. This wasn't just work anymore. It was where she'd learned, thanks to a cowboy who showed her how.